go on to the next page. It should be in your paper, Edward Hall's list. And this list is quoted in Sherwood Lingenfelter's book. And he was, Mr. Hall was giving this list as all different ways that people communicate something. But we could also use it as a list of aspects of culture, because that's really what it is. The first is language, and the second is temporality, related to the word temporary. So it has to do with time, attitude toward time, routine, schedule. Now, with each of these, let me ask you a few questions to think about to show how you view this. Attitude towards time, routine, and schedule. Do you normally expect things to start on time? Just think about your own assumptions about things. Do you normally expect things to start on time? Now, of course, there are things in different categories. There are official things that are set by institutions like here, where a class is assumed to start on time. What about if you tell a friend, hey, I want to come over at 3 o'clock? How careful would you be to make sure you were there at 3? Or are you thinking anywhere around 3? And if you showed up at 3:30, you don't really think anything about that. If you showed up at 3:30, you wouldn't expect your friend to open the door and say, man, where have you been? It's 3:30. I thought you were coming at 3. Maybe in your mind, 3:30 is basically the same as 3. 3:30, I mean, what's the difference? Okay? But that is a cultural thing. And some people think of time very rigidly. If you said you'd be there at 3, you should be there, maybe 5 minutes late's okay, but anything after 5, they're wondering where you went, and why you're not there. Do you assume that you should be there on time? How late can a friend be to a meeting before you would be irritated at that? Okay? That tells a lot about what culture you come from. All right? So if you can go to meet a friend and he's not there, and you sit around for 20 or 30 minutes and you're not irritated, you're not even really wondering yet where he is, that shows something about the culture that you're from. Okay? If at 3 or 3:05 you're looking at your watch and saying, man, he said 3, where is he? That shows something about you. And in the book, Hot and Cold Cultures, she talked about that a lot. And there's a lot of examples. She gave some good examples about that. I have a friend who is from Dominica, and Kayla would know him. And he was a student at a Bible college, and he didn't have a car, and so people would help him do his shopping sometimes. And so he would call somebody and say, hey, can you take me to Walmart? I need to get some things. And they say, okay, sure, fine. What time? Okay, how about 2 o'clock this afternoon? Well, at 2 o'clock, the driver arrives at the dorm, sends somebody to knock, and he's not ready. He may not be dressed. He may still need to brush his teeth, straighten his room up a little bit, and maybe find something or whatever. And it might be 20 or 30 minutes later that he comes out of the dorm to go. Now, the driver, meanwhile, what is he or she thinking? What would you be thinking if you were in that position?
Well, if you meant to go at 2:30, why'd you tell me 2 o'clock?
Okay, right. And could you resent it a little bit, maybe?
Yeah.
Because you're pretty busy as a Bible college student, right? Time is very valuable. And so if he really wasn't going to be ready at 2, then you don't want to sit in your car and wait 20 or 30 minutes. Okay, but see, in his mind, time flows. And it's not that carefully measured out. It's not that precise. And one thing about time, it always seems like there's more of it. It just keeps coming, right? What you don't get done today, there will be another day. At least in some cultures, that's the way they see it. Time is just an endless river. It keeps coming. So why do you worry about a few minutes when there's more minutes coming? I mean, who cares? Now with us, though, we're used to measuring time out and making the most of it. Okay? Because to us, each day has a limited amount. We've already crammed it about as full as we can. And even for the next few days, we know that they're crammed pretty full. And so in this person's mind, I've got to get back, I've got to finish reading a book, I've got to do this homework, and so on. And here I am sitting here waiting for somebody that wasn't ready. It's a view of time. Territoriality. That's space, property. How many of you, if you were to go to a friend's dormitory room, you would knock on the door if you wanted to talk to that person? Okay. Most of you. You might have 1 or 2 friends that you would feel like you could just open the door, maybe. And just say, hey, what are you doing? And talk to them, whatever. Most people, you probably wouldn't do that to. If you went up to somebody's house especially if it's somebody you didn't know, you'd probably knock on the door, right? Okay, that's a cultural thing. In some cultures, they don't do that. In Ukraine, they typically open the door. They'll open the door. And actually, what they'll do, this never made sense to me, but they knock as they open it. Okay, so they knock and stick their head in. And for a while, we locked our door. Even after we, of course, in the city, we kept it locked all the time anyway because it wasn't safe. We moved out in the country; it was safe. But I was irritated that people would come up and just open the door and stick their head in. And so we'd lock the door until I began to realize this is a cultural thing. You might be sitting in the car, and if somebody wants to tell you something, they'll come up and open the door. Now, they don't do that here, okay? Even hardly for somebody that you know. They won't come up and just open your car door. They'll come up and tap on the window, right? And this is all about space and territory. In fact, here, if you were sitting downtown in a dangerous area and somebody just suddenly opened your door, it would probably alarm you, right?
Yeah.
Okay? And I'm talking about people that even they don't know you. In Ukraine, they want to tell you something, so they open your door and tell you. House, same way. So this is it's a difference. The way we view space, the way we view our property. What does home mean to you? What does it mean to be home? Normally, it's a place where nobody is going to bother you except the other people who live there. And even then, there can be some tension among people who are sharing the space. Now, Bible college is not like it was back when I was in school. Space in the dorms was very different then, because in fact, the two dorms we had were both houses. The boys' dorms, they had both originally been houses, and so they weren't really set up with these nice long hallways with rooms on each side. They were just normal houses. So that each room had been made a room, usually for 2 or 3 guys. I was in with 3 guys for 1 year. That made 4 of us. And you know what fills a room up is not the furniture, it's personalities. That's what makes a room full. A room feels crowded because of all the personalities that are in it. And some personalities take up a lot more space than others. You notice that? There's some people that when they're there, the room just seems full. Just seems crowded. Other people, it doesn't. Personalities take up that room. And so you have people who are used to dropping their clothes on the floor. You have other people who are used to putting everything up. And you have people that don't think anything of spreading out their stuff on your bed if they need extra space. Because it's there, it's handy. Where you're thinking, okay, that's your bed, this is my bed, make do with the space that you have, But see, there's these different concepts. Now, some of you are thinking, man, I can't believe anybody would spread out stuff on the other person's bed. Others of you may be thinking, what's wrong with that? Why would anybody be bothered by that? But it's a cultural thing, the way we view space. One of the books was Sarah Lanier's book that talked about the roommate who came and was trying on the clothes of the other people. Now, when I first read that, it's been, I can't remember how long, years ago, when I first read that, I thought, why would any guy think that he could just go in there and do that? He goes in, and here he's got 2 roommates that he hasn't even met yet. They're not even there right now. And he gets out their clothes and tries them on. Well, to him, he's entering this new little community that he's going to share this space, and everything is there to share. And we've got these clothes. Wow, this is great. And he wouldn't have minded if they wore anything that he had. But in American culture, most of the time, it's only very close friends who loan each other clothes. It does happen some, but it doesn't happen a lot. And some people wouldn't loan their clothes to anybody. So, space and property. In some cultures, when you go to somebody's house, let's take German culture, for example. When you go to their house, they seat you somewhere, and you're expected to stay there until they take you somewhere else. Okay? So they come in the door, oh, welcome, good to see you. And they take you may even show you which chair to sit in. They seat you, and then maybe they sit, or maybe they're preparing something in the kitchen or whatever, but you stay in that spot. You're not expected to wander around, okay? You stay in that spot until they come and say, would you like to come in and eat? And you go in there. Okay? There are other cultures where, and some of these would be African cultures, where it's assumed that the whole house is open to you and you roam through the house, including the bedrooms. There's no area that's off limits because you're getting to know this person, and so going through their whole house is just part of that. You walk around and see everything. Okay? And so you can see how that would be some adjustment for some people. You know, some people, when they've invited somebody over, they've got some rooms that they've piled stuff into, you know. Let's get all the toys picked up, get everything picked up, and shove it into these rooms. And they would just squawk if somebody opened that door, you know. Might be like McGee's Closet. That's some generation before you guys, though. Have you heard McGee's Closet? Okay. Where you open the door and there's this avalanche of stuff. So, differences in space. Okay. Exploitation. The methods of control, and this is especially controlling resources, things, and the use and sharing of resources. What kinds of things would you loan to somebody? What kinds of things would you borrow? What things do you call your own? Okay? We have categories of things that we consider our own. Okay? So like the clothes that we wear are usually our own. You have paper and pencils, you have items in your room, you have items at home that you consider yours. You would expect somebody to ask before borrowing that. Then there would be broader things that you possess along with a community. It might be a small community like your family. So you live together in a house. Okay? So there's not one person there who says, this is my house, except maybe your parents if they're having trouble with you. They say, this is my house. Okay? In other words, I'm setting the terms of you living here. Okay? But under normal circumstances, we don't think of the house as belonging to one person. It belongs to us collectively. The streets, our community, you know. And so all those things have cultural aspects. Who do we think something belongs to? And how do we use it? Association. Family, kin, community. Who do you consider family? If it's just your parents and your brothers and sisters, that's about the smallest designation of family. Some cultures would go much broader than that. And so there would be cousins that would be as close as brothers. And then in some cultures there's this long, intricate network of relationships that we would wonder how you could even keep it straight. Okay? This person is married to my aunt's stepson by his third marriage, you know, whatever. You know, these intricate, and in the inner city, by the way, they have sometimes these intricate relationships. And they can keep track of it. They know whose mother is who and whose daddy is who, and there's just aunts and grandmothers and this intricate web of relationships that they keep straight in the inner city that they boggle. You know, I used to pick up kids for our church in Indianapolis. And it was amazing to me how many of them were related. You know, we'd go all over town picking up these kids, and they all know, you know, this is my cousin, you know, and they have it all straight. It's not confusing to them. But it's cultural, to some extent, how far you count relatives and how far you keep track of them. And American culture, of course, parents and grandparents and so on are important to us, but we tend to define the basic family as the household size. So it's mom and dad and the kids. That's the family. And then beyond that, there are relationships that are important and some obligations there, maybe to help take care of elderly parents and so on. But most things happen within the household. Decisions are made there. You would not expect Grandpa to come to the house and change anything. Or to, especially to get on to the kids for something that Dad lets them do. Okay? But in other cultures, that would be perfectly normal. Grandpa calls the shots. He's the one that's been here the longest. And he might discipline the kids right in front of their dad, and the dad doesn't say a thing because it's all normal to them. There's these different relationships that are involved. The family is more than just parents and kids. And there are advantages and disadvantages to that. We'll have a section later on we'll talk about family.